Well, hi everyone. I'm going to go ahead and get us started since we know it's a lot of people's lunch hour and we want to finish on time today. We did ask you to do a quick poll. Caroline, maybe do you want to show the results here? So before we get started, it looks like we've got a small crew today, but about 2/3 of us live in the study area in the Gateway South area, south of I-85. We have another third that live in nearby DeKalb. It looks like, again, around 3/4 of us have participated in one of the September meetings, which is great. So you have some good background, and we do have some newcomers here as well. And then it looks like about a third have participated in some of the input activities online. So the rest of you all, we have a good homework assignment for you, a survey that builds on what we're talking about today. So thank you all for being here, and I'll turn the floor over to Allison.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for attending today. We appreciate your time. Like Amanda said, we're going to try to keep this until about 1 o'clock. What we're going to do is we have a very brief PowerPoint presentation that we're going to do. So we'll go over who we are, what this project is about. We'll spend a little bit of time talking about what we've heard so far in the process. We have a couple of brief large group discussion activities, but the bulk of today will really be spent in smaller breakout groups to talk about some of the more detailed aspects of land use in these areas. Then at the end, if we have time, we'll come together and wrap up. So I'd like to go ahead and start by introducing our team. I'm Allison Stewart-Harris. I'm the consultant team project manager. I come from a company called VHB. I'm here with my colleagues Amanda Hatton and Caroline Evans from Blue Cypress. And we are assisting Patrice Ruffin, who is the Director of Community Development for the City of Brookhaven, and her wonderful staff. So thank you all again so much for coming, and we see you all as the community is also part of our team.
So we did want to remind everyone that this is a community-based planning effort. Really, the end result is a product of the participation that we're hearing, and then ground truthing that with the planning expertise and what's going on in the city in terms of already existing plans. So we want to remind everyone that it's really important that we hear from everyone today. Everyone's opinion is valued. We ask you to choose your words kindly. We do have everyone muted for the beginning portion of the meeting, but we will open it up as we move into small breakout groups. That's largely to keep us on topic. If you do have a comment as we're presenting or as we're together as one group, please use the chat function and we'll make sure we bring that up to the broader group. Also, a note that we are recording the meeting so that folks that couldn't attend one of these live meetings can get up to speed and provide input via the online engagement hub. And the last quick note here is just a reminder that that we'd like to stay on topic tonight. We're really focused on planning the long-term vision, looking 20 years out for the areas of incorporated Brookhaven south of I-85. We know that there are some related things going on that are important, but we want to put those in the parking lot, or we'll have an opportunity where you can talk directly with Patrice during the meeting if you have concerns about things really outside of what we're focusing on today. We think everyone's pretty familiar with Zoom, but we do want to give you a few quick reminders about how Zoom works, or if you haven't used it before. Just a reminder that on your toolbar that shows up, you can see whether you're muted and your video is on. We do ask that if you're comfortable when we move to breakout groups to share your video. It's nice to see your faces and reactions to things. And again, unmute yourself in the breakout groups as well. There, you can also see the participants in the meeting, and you can raise your hand if you have something to say and we're not capturing your input. Use the raise hand function. And then I've already spoken to the chat function, which you can see in your toolbar too. Please use that, and we will ask you to use that in some of our group discussion here in a couple of minutes. Lastly, just a reminder that you can adjust your viewing session settings if you're getting overwhelmed with all the Zoom stuff going on. You can do the icon that is second to the left, and that'll just show the speaker, like you could just see me right now, or you can see everyone in the meeting. So just a reminder that you can adjust those things. We don't have a lot of other things we're incorporating today, but we do want to point out that the project website sits on Social Pinpoint. This is the web link and the QR code to get to it. We are going to ask you to head over there after this meeting or at another time this week to provide some follow-up input.
Great, thanks, Amanda. So we want to just spend a couple of minutes going over our project goals and process. The main crux of this plan is really in acknowledging that there's very distinct character in the La Vista Park areas and around the medical center, and really wanting to focus some visioning and some planning on what these areas can and should look like over the next 20 years. So ultimately, this will be folded into the city's comprehensive plan, and we are going to talk in a little bit about how your input informs the comprehensive plan, which could then influence zoning in a little bit.
Oops.
That's okay, go ahead. Next slide.
There we go.
This is a very fast-moving project. We started at the end of August. We're now right in the middle. So if you take a look at our schedule, we're at 2.6, which is meeting series number 2. And again, this is rescheduled from last week due to the storm, so thank you all for your flexibility. The map on the left shows the area that we're looking at. So again, sort of down by in the left-hand side, we have La Vista Park. Then we travel up to the northeast, and you see the medical center around North Druid Hills Road. So we are looking at these areas as really kind of two distinct communities. First, the La Vista Park area, and then second, what we're calling for now the Activity Center, which is, again, it's really that area where CHOA and Emory are doing a lot of their development programs. We're still looking for a name for that, so if you have ideas, please let us know, because we keep calling it the Activity Center, and we know nobody likes that. But we are really trying to focus on the two futures of these areas and how they interact together. Next slide.
So, of course, we've collected a lot of input to date. We wanted to highlight what we've done so far, and again, reiterating that this is very much a community-driven vision, and so you should very clearly see the connection of the input we've collected from the community in the end result that gets folded into the comp plan. So what have we done to date? We've held stakeholder interviews. We did these back in September, September. We met with 8 stakeholders. You can see the list here on the screen. We talked about future plans, major concerns and goals of these stakeholders, and then public investment. So we really tried to understand what was important to these very important but sometimes different groups that are located in or impacted by the community. We did hold our first set of meetings in September. We had 49 participants over 2 meetings. We had several input activities, which you'll see some of the what that input was that we heard here in a moment. And then, of course, we have this online engagement hub at Brookhaven Gateway South, and there is a live survey up today that's pretty detailed and builds on what we talk about during this meeting. So we wanted to highlight just kind of overall what have we heard about this area south of I-85 in Brookhaven. We've really heard the same things repeated over time. We know that traffic congestion is a big concern. We know that we really, like, this product needs to really talk about the transition areas between like the neighborhoods and the major medical investment areas that are going on. How do we transition in a way that doesn't inhibit either of those areas? That there is general support for commercial and recreational uses that improve the quality of life of the residents in the area. So in the right location, yes, we are supportive of that. We also heard the need to continue to balance growth with infrastructure. And one really key thing we wanted to point out is that we've heard from multiple stakeholders that the city of Brookhaven is doing a good job, that people are happy with how the zoning and development process from both a resident standpoint, but also from an investor or a business standpoint as well. So La Vista Park, Allison alluded to this. We are going to be calling this area you see on the right La Vista Park. It's consistent with the neighborhood, which makes up the largest area. Again, what are some of the biggest things that we took away from this? You can see the biggest hopes and concerns which came out of the last meeting, but we heard that retaining the character of the area and the single family character and land uses is the top priority, and then connectivity. city. So how do we better connect from a pedestrian standpoint to other areas? And I would add to this, while also taking into account congestion, and how do we mitigate some of the congestion we anticipate as redevelopment continues to happen. When we talked about activity center, again, we're still looking for a name for this area. We'll get that get to that in a minute, but really the big takeaways here were, again, that need to address congestion. The area needs an identity. How can it have a distinct character, and what are some of the things we can do to further that? A desire for more green space, and to be mindful of the impacts to surrounding residents. So those are just some of the big takeaways from the meetings to date. We did want to pause for a minute to just highlight a few things that are going on that do relate to what we're doing with this visioning process. We want to remind everyone that aside from this visioning process, which really gives a guide to the city as rezonings come on board, that every property, of course, in the city is assigned a zoning district. So there's these inherent property rights that are already governed and given to all the properties in the area. We are not impacting that. They already have the ability to develop under their current zoning district. So what this does is help guide if somebody comes in and says, hey, I want to use my property differently, I want to rezone. That's when the city comes in and says, okay, wait, does this align with the vision that we have for the area? And that's why this process is really important, because as those rezonings come up, this will be really the key document that the city looks at as they make decisions related to that. We also do have the Buford Highway Overlay District that covers primarily the medical campus area, which is, up here. I'm using that term liberally. So that overlay district does have requirements for sidewalk widths and plantings along streets and things of that nature. So a lot of the things we've already heard through this planning effort are to some degree covered in that, but we want to make sure that everyone's aware of that tool, and we will likely be making some suggestions for how that tool could be leveraged or looked at a little differently to apply the vision here. Finally, I just want to reiterate what Allison said, is that this work's being folded into the comprehensive plan, and it does help drive those decisions related to development and rezoning. And Allison, I know this is important. Is there anything you want to add to what I've already said here?
No, I'll point it out when we talk about how the input will be folded into the document.
Okay, so a few other things about what's going on around us. The slide is out of date because our last meeting was on the 26th of October. The annexation of the area around the Target Shopping Center, that did go through. For those of you, I'm imagining most people are aware of that. So that is now incorporated as a part of the city of Brookhaven. There is a requirement in that annexation that the zoning remain the same, or remain what it is in DeKalb County for everything except for a very limited portion of that property. So we want to make sure everyone's aware that that has already been annexed. There is a portion of the property that has been rezoned into the city's zoning districts. The DeKalb County Comprehensive Plan is looking for an update within the next year. We know we have a third of our participants are from surrounding DeKalb County, so just to be aware of that process, and then what goes on in that will, of course, be very important to what goes on in the broader area. We also have a regional plan that guides growth, and then there are a lot of other plans that the city of Brookhaven has proactively developed that address a lot of the things that we've heard about. The Brookhaven Bicycle Pedestrian Trail Plan, the city's about to start its tree ordinance rewrite. There's a lot of great things that will actualize some of the things we've heard about.
Great, thanks, Amanda. So we want to show you all directly how your input today and throughout the process is going to be integrated into our final document. What you see on the screen here, this is a page out of Brookhaven's current comprehensive plan. It's an example that we're taking from the Lakes District. So what you'll see at the top here is the community vision. We're going to have a really quick exercise coming up in a minute talking about vision keywords. And So that vision statement's exactly where that input is going to inform. You'll also see this column on the right says appropriate land uses. Amanda's going to go through some of the draft land uses we put together, get your input on that. And so again, your input would go there. When we go into our breakout groups, we're really going to start talking about some of the more detailed questions that we have. So looking at the core of each of these two areas, the arterials, those transition areas, and talk a little bit about what the big priorities are there. So when you ultimately see the draft document, you will see your input reflected in the text in this place. We had a question at our last meeting, just sort of thinking, well, what's the connection between this and zoning? So I want to give an example. So let's say I'm in the activity center and I come to the city with a request to rezone my parcel. So I come to Drew or Rhonda and they say, okay, we see your request. Let me reference the comprehensive plan and see if it's in alignment. So I'd say, okay, you know, this is this land use is an appropriate land use according to our comprehensive plan, and it does meet or it doesn't meet these additional development recommendations. So it's really a tool to help Brookhaven City staff and the community to say, okay, yes, this is what we've agreed upon as a community is acceptable here, and what's not. Go ahead, Amanda, next slide. All right, so we've teased this a little bit. We do want to have a quick discussion about these visioning keywords for each area. So as we've gone through this process, we've heard a lot of consensus about the things that everybody likes about La Vista Park. So some of the keywords that we've been hearing a lot are, you know, residential, community, connected, wooded, peaceful. What we'd like for you all to do is to provide us with any comments about these keywords using the chat box. Are these keywords that when you think about La Vista Park in the next 20 years, do you want these words to be describing it? If you don't like these keywords, tell us that as well. If you have other suggestions, please tell us that as well. But go ahead and just, you know, use your chat box and, you know, let us know what you think about these keywords as representative of La Vista Park in the next 20 years. Okay, give folks another moment or two. And again, if we end up moving on and you missed a chance at typing in, just say La Vista Park and then the keywords after that. Okay, we're getting a few. Let's see, I'd like to see safety, walkable, accessible. Okay, those are great. Any other suggestions for what we should try to incorporate into the brief vision assessment, vision statement? All right, Amanda, let's go ahead and go on to the activity center. All right, so again, the activity center, when we're talking about the activity center, that is the area around North Druid Hills, where, you know, where CHOA is, Executive Park, the Executive Park townhomes, that whole area. So, you know, I think these words, I think there's a broader range of what's in play here for the future. Some of the words we've heard throughout the process that people would like to associate with this area over the next 20 years are innovation, activity, opportunity, hub, and accessible. So when we think about that, the activity center, you know, do these words represent what your vision would be for the area? Do you have suggestions on others? So it looks like, okay, residential is a comment. You know, one of the things that we've heard a little bit in the chat today about and in earlier meetings is there is some discussion over, you know, do we want to be talking about the activity center specifically as a medical center? So I think we hear people support that or not support that. So it'd be great to get some more input on that. And if you think that, you know, being a medical center should be a really defining aspect of this area. All right, it looks like we got community, integrated, some support for those. Okay, great. All right, well, let's, if you have more suggestions, please go ahead, please keep using the chat. Amanda, let's go ahead and move forward and talk about some of the draft land uses. Oh, you're on mute.
Unmute first. So as Allison spoke to earlier, part of the final thing that gets put into the comp plan that in turn helps guide the city as development proposals come up or rezonings come up is what land uses are appropriate within this character area. And so there's a section, if you look in the current comp plan for each character area, what land uses are appropriate. Now, when looking at La Vista Park, we spent some time really looking at your current comprehensive plan and how are similar residential areas treated. And so these are the uses based on conversations, and then again, ground truthing it with your current comp plan, what is appropriate for La Vista Park. Single family residential, parks and recreation, institutional, and then we have some questions about townhomes and neighborhood commercial, and you'll see an asterisk here because we want to spend a little time talking about that in the breakout groups. We want to really find out, is there an area that's appropriate within the mapping area shown here on the right for those uses, or nah, we've got that other places and it's not really appropriate here. So what we would love you to do again is to, if you have any initial reaction to this, to go ahead and put it in the chat. As we spoke to, we'll get into this a little bit more in the breakout groups as well. So thumbs up, looks good, or are we missing something? Are we missing a land use here? And I should point out that when we say institutional, we mean things like a school, a church, like a post office, things that support like a city office of some sort, like a recreational center building. Those are the types of things we mean by institutional. Give folks a moment to comment if there are any. Okay. Well, I don't see much activity over there, so I'm going to go ahead. Again, feel free to chat or save your comment for the breakout groups too. Then we move into the activity center, and again, looking at what have we heard, what is already here, what makes sense to continue. We have a much broader list: multifamily residential, commercial and retail, institutional uses, office, townhomes, mixed use, parks and recreation, hotel, neighborhood commercial, light industrial. And the light industrial may seem a little strange, but you know, that can serve some of the uses within the CHOA and Emory, depending on what their needs are. So that's a little explanation on that one. But again, looked at what's going on in your other activity centers in Brookhaven and what have we heard through this process. So if you have any initial gut reactions or looks good, please add it to the chat, or something you want to talk about in more detail, we can do that in the breakout group. And I'm looking over here. We have one awesome from Joe, thank you. We have a high number of religious organizations at school in La Vista. That could be, can also move down La Vista in the La Vista Park area, okay. And Larry's commenting that institutional should be aligned with the activity center. So that sounds like maybe we don't want that within the La Vista Park, but only in the activity center.
Yeah,
that'll
I
be
want to
something we
interrupt
can look into a little bit.
But it looks like a little bit further up, there was a little more discussion about the institutional, maybe needing an asterisk in the park area. Because it says, depending on
La Vista Park.
particular proposal, I'd like to have a little more say over what gets approved.
Okay, thanks, Caroline.
And then we have a question.
All right.
Of light industrial.
Light industrial is a use that doesn't produce a lot of noise or invasive. Like when you think of heavy industrial, it's making lots of noise or it might make some pollution. And light industrial would be something like a storage unit. Looking to the city staff that's more deeply involved in the city's code, if anyone would like to chime in with what Brookhaven defines as light industrial.
Yeah, I think that's correct, Amanda. We would classify it as, you know, a storage facility, or so if you can think about kind of some of the uses that are along the frontage roads against 85, like floor and decor, you know, some of those other kind of bigger uses, but that aren't your normal regular retail commercial kind of uses.
Thanks, Patrice. Okay. So I see some comments here about, it seems like there's some debate about whether institutional or industrial are appropriate and where. So
and
we'll
just again, from the city standpoint, an institutional use is going to be like a school or a hospital or something like that. Institutional is not the same as light industrial or commercial.
Looks like we do have a couple of questions. Aren't institutional and office different? I mean, I would say yes, they have similarities, but I would consider them to be treated differently. Is that correct, Amanda or Patrice?
Yeah, I would agree with that. Like I said, we would think of institutional uses as schools, hospitals, churches, uses like that. Office, you know, retail and industrial obviously have different other different things that would qualify under those categories.
All right. Well, I think we can, again, we can bring up some of this in the breakout groups, which we are just now transitioning to. So I don't want to stifle the conversation, but we know some people might have a tight deadline of ending the meeting. So Caroline, do you want to chime in and explain the breakout group? So they have someone else to listen to aside from me.
Sure. Well, hi, everybody. What we're going to do is utilize a Zoom function to put you into, we're going to do 2 groups today so that you have a little more one-on-one time. Allison will lead the first group and Amanda will lead the second group. You've been randomly assigned to a group, but we are also asking some of the city staff to go into each, so they'll be available to answer your questions. I'll push the button, you'll go to the groups, and then there will be a countdown when you are finished and are coming back. If you'd like to come back to the main room, Patrice will be here, and you're welcome to come back and or stay if you'd like to have a in-depth discussion about something other than what we're discussing in the breakout groups.
And thanks, Caroline, before we move, it's probably helpful for the group in general to understand how we're going to work through this this discussion as we're talking about, again, aligning with the way that the current comprehensive plan is set up, is looking at each of these character areas from an interior standpoint, from an arterial standpoint, and a transition standpoint. Like, what are there different policies and a slightly different vision or implementation measures that are appropriate in certain areas versus other areas of the character. And I think that gets back to some of the asterisks and some of the comments we got earlier. So this is our plan. We'll spend 15 minutes on La Vista Park-ish and 15 minutes on the activity center. And I want to reiterate, in case we find ourselves tight on the end of time, is that these same questions are in the survey that are on the Brookhaven Gateway South website. So we encourage you all to go in there and provide input as well, and encourage other neighbors that maybe haven't participated in the meetings to chime in as well, because that we will be looking closely at what people say in that survey.
And if I could just clarify for everyone also, we'll be having the same discussion in both groups. Both groups will discuss La Vista Park and then the activity center. We're just breaking them out into smaller groups so that everyone has a chance to speak in person. So, okay, I'm going to go ahead and open all the rooms. And so we will see you back here.
Really appreciate your time and attention. So we do want to encourage you to keep checking back in at the project website. As Amanda mentioned, we do have another engagement activity on there that we would encourage you to do, or if you have neighbors who haven't been able to participate, please encourage them to go ahead and do that as well. Today's exercises will be available for about another week online, and we plan to have the draft character area plan online for review next month. And really, I think that's about it. Amanda, did you have anything else, or Patrice, did you have anything else that you wanted to add? All right, I will take the silence as a no. Again, thank you all so much for participating. And if you have feedback for the planning team on how we can engage with you all on future projects, please let us know. We always want to make sure that we are doing our best to communicate with folks and really represent your voice. So thank you again so much for participating. We really appreciate it.